Okay, let's think about this. What if the next thing you pull out of your pocket isn't just, an ID card? What if it's more like a universal login for your entire life? One that gives governments, and yeah, big corporations too, real-time access to basically everything you do.
And that's not some sci-fi future scenario.
Yeah.
Well, it's a massive kind of quiet transformation that's already happening right now,
Yeah.
globally. We're seeing this huge push for mandatory digital IDs.
Yeah.
It's a standardization effort that's set to affect, well, billions of people.
Billions. And it's moving incredibly fast, isn't it? Our sources are showing, well over 100 countries actively developing or actually launching these programs. And when you look at some of the major players, the scale really hits you.
It really does.
Yeah.
Take the EU, for example.
Yeah.
They've mandated that all member states have to roll out a national digital ID wallet.
Yeah.
And the deadline, 2026, that's soon. Then you've got the U.S., where digital driver's licenses are already a thing in at least 25 states. But maybe the clearest signal of this centralization, the most, frankly, alarming one, is the UK. The government there intends to make digital ID mandatory. Get this. For the right to work. By the end of this parliament.
Mandatory to work. So it's not about choosing convenience anymore. It's about your basic ability to get a job.
Exactly. It shifts the dynamic entirely.
Okay, so this rapid global push is undeniable. Our mission in this deep dive today is to really unpack the trade-off here. We keep hearing about efficiency, convenience. It's just modernizing things, right? That's the pitch. But the critics, and there are many, they're warning that these systems are laying the groundwork for, well, some are calling it turnkey totalitarianism. We need to understand how this fundamental change in managing identity actually shifts power, shifts it away from you, the individual, and more towards centralized control. But before we jump into all the risks, let's be fair. We need to understand the proponents' side. Why are big organizations like the UN, the World Bank, and governments pushing this so hard? What are the main benefits they're promising us?
Well, they definitely lead with efficiency. The number one benefit they cite is convenience. They're billing the digital ID as this seamless, universal login for life, something that just streamlines every single interaction you have with the state.
Like online banking, but for everything.
Kind of, yeah. The go-to example is always Estonia. They handle something like 99% of public services digitally. We're talking voting, taxes, health records, the works. And they estimate, this is a big number, that this saves them about 2% of their GDP every year, just by cutting out red tape and friction.
2% of GDP, that's a huge economic argument right there. Okay, what's benefit number 2?
Security. Specifically security and fraud prevention. Identity theft, as we know, costs billions every year. Businesses, individuals, everyone gets hit. So the argument is that digital IDs, because they use biometrics, fingerprints, facial scans, are just fundamentally harder to fake than the paper or plastic cards we carry now.
Okay, harder to fake. Makes sense on the surface. And the third point?
The third is about inclusion. This is framed as a humanitarian goal. You've got the UN aiming for 2030 to provide a legal identity for the nearly 1 billion people around the world who currently don't have one.
1 billion people, wow.
Yeah, and without any official ID, you're locked out of so much, right?
Yeah.
Banking, often government benefits, you can't easily prove who you are legally.
Right.
So the digital ID is presented as the solution to fix this huge global inequality.
Right. So saving money, stopping fraud, helping the world's most vulnerable, those are really compelling arguments, but and this is where our deep dive gets critical. The critics argue something else. They say the very features designed for that convenience, they're the exact same features that enable control.
Precisely. Once your entire identity, your money, your health info, your travel, your job status is all linked together in one digital place,
Yeah.
well, the whole power structure changes.
How so?
Well, think about it. If there's one single access point, one master key for your whole life, whoever controls that ID, that master key, holds immense power, sweeping power. Let's start with how this centralizes government control first and what that means for personal liberty.
Okay. The first big concern seems to be surveillance. How does a digital ID, like a driver's license on your phone, suddenly become this real-time tracking device?
It's baked into the design. It's this phone home feature that some U.S. digital driver's license apps already have built in. And the consequence is pretty staggering when you think about it. Every single time that ID gets used, scanned at an airport, checked by police, validated at a hotel, maybe even buying age-restricted items, it pings a central government database.
Pings a database, meaning
It creates a time-stamped, location-specific log, a record of what you did, where you did it, and when, in real time. So the government doesn't necessarily need a warrant anymore to follow your movements. You're kind of voluntarily carrying the tracker in your pocket.
Okay, that's Unsettling, constant, passive tracking. And once you have that kind of surveillance infrastructure in place, the next logical step seems to be control, financial control.
Exactly. Financial coercion becomes much, much easier. And we've already seen governments show they're willing to do this, willing to freeze citizens out of their own money, their savings, without needing to go through a trial or get a conviction.
You're talking about Canada, right? In 2022.
That's the key example, yes. The government ordered banks to freeze the accounts of the Freedom Convoy protesters. But crucially, it wasn't just the protesters themselves, it was also people who donated, maybe just small amounts, to support them. Ordinary citizens locked out of their bank accounts overnight.
Just for supporting a cause the government didn't like.
Essentially, yes. And the really concerning part is how easily this can be justified legally. They often use existing anti-money laundering laws. These only require suspicion of unusual activity, not proof of a crime. It's a very low bar.
Suspicion. So donating to a protest, maybe buying cryptocurrency, expressing certain views online, that could be flagged as unusual.
It potentially could, yes. We saw a similar tactic in Georgia, actually, where the government froze the bank accounts of lawyers and NGOs. Why? Because they were providing legal help to protesters. It's not about stopping crime, it's about cutting off financial support to effectively silence dissent.
Chilling. And if we want to see where this kind of integrated control could ultimately lead.
Then you have to look at China's social credit system. It's the blueprint, really. Their national digital ID is directly linked to everything. Financial history, online behavior, where you travel. So if the government disapproves of something you do or say, they can instantly use that digital ID link to impose consequences.
Like what kind of consequences?
Like restricting your ability to travel. We know people have been blacklisted from buying plane or train tickets simply because their social credit score dropped too low. It's total integrated behavioral control, tied directly to your digital identity.
Okay, so surveillance, financial freezing, travel bans. What's the final piece of this government control puzzle? You mentioned digital currencies earlier.
Right, central bank digital currencies or CBDCs.
Right.
Now, proponents say, oh, it's just like digital cash, it's just an upgrade. But when you combine a centralized digital ID with a centralized government-issued digital currency, you open the door to something called programmable money.
Programmable money. What does that mean?
It means the money itself isn't neutral anymore. The authority issuing it to the government or central bank could potentially set rules or parameters on how that money can be used.
Rules, like
Programming it to restrict certain purchases. Maybe you can't use it to buy fossil fuels or too much junk food based on government policy. Or maybe it won't work at certain stores deemed undesirable. Or, get this, they could even give the money an expiry date. Spend it by this deadline, or it just vanishes.
it disappears. So it's not really your money anymore, is it? If someone else dictates how, when, and where you can spend it.
That's the fundamental question it raises, isn't it? It's less like cash and more like a conditional government coupon that's constantly monitored. Your financial autonomy is basically gone.
Okay, the implications for government power are huge. Let's pivot now. Because it's not just governments who stand to gain from this centralization, is it? What about corporate power?
Oh, absolutely. This shift is potentially a massive win for large corporations, too. It could fundamentally change consumer economics and, well, privacy as we know it.
How so? What's the mechanism there?
Think of the digital ID as a kind of super cookie. But instead of just tracking your online browsing, it connects your entire identity across everything. Your online life, yes, but also your offline activities, where you shop, what you buy, your health appointments, your travel patterns, it all gets linked. And big companies like Uber and Amazon, they're already experimenting with accepting these unified digital IDs. You can see how they'd want to integrate that comprehensive profile.
Right, for targeted advertising, maybe?
Way beyond just ads. This level of data centralization enables the ultimate goal for many businesses: dynamic pricing, perfected.
Dynamic pricing. That's where prices change based on demand, right? Like airline tickets.
Yes, but this takes it to a whole new level. With a complete profile linked to your digital ID, algorithms can charge different people vastly different prices for the exact same thing. It's based purely on what the algorithm perceives as your individual willingness or desperation to pay. It's personalized pricing based on your vulnerability.
Can you give an example? How would that work?
Okay, imagine this. The system knows, maybe from your travel app linked to your ID, that you just landed after a 10-hour delayed flight. You're exhausted, you're stuck at the airport, you go to buy a sandwich. The algorithm sees your situation: tired, captive customer, and instantly bumps the price for you. That $12 sandwich, now it's $25 because it knows you'll likely pay it.
Wow. So it prices your desperation level.
Essentially, yes. Or another example, say the system sees you search for tickets to a specific concert multiple times this week. The algorithm flags you as a highly motivated buyer. So when you finally go to purchase, the price it shows you is significantly higher than what it might show someone who just looked once. You're not paying market rate. You're paying based on your tracked enthusiasm.
That feels incredibly unfair. It removes any sense of a level playing field in the market.
It does, and it leads to a significant loss of negotiation power for the individual. Think about essential services, like car insurance or home insurance. Right now, they use broad categories, right? Age, location, driving record basics. But with a centralized digital ID potentially linked to everything, they could hypothetically see your exact driving patterns from rideshare apps, every doctor visit, maybe even your grocery habits.
So they know almost everything about your risk profile, personally.
Exactly. How could you possibly negotiate a fair rate when, as one source put it, the system already knows too much about you to be argued with? You lose all leverage.
Okay, so immense power shifts to both governments and corporations. But what about the system itself? We're talking about centralizing all this incredibly sensitive data, financial, biometric, location. Isn't that creating a massive security risk?
That's the great paradox, isn't it? These systems are sold partly on the promise of enhancing security. But by centralizing everything, you create the ultimate honeypot. A single point of failure that becomes an incredibly attractive target for hackers, criminal gangs, even hostile foreign powers.
And if that central database gets breached, what happens then? Especially with the biometrics involved.
That's where it gets really scary because biometric data is different.
Hmm.
Digital IDs heavily rely on biometrics, fingerprints, facial scans, maybe iris scans. If that data leaks, if it's stolen and sold, you can't just reset it like a password. Your fingerprint is your fingerprint. Your face is your face. So a breach means that unique, unchangeable biological identifier is compromised.
Yes.
Forever, leaving you permanently vulnerable to sophisticated identity theft.
Firmly vulnerable. And is this just a theoretical risk, or has this kind of thing happened?
Oh, it's already happened on a massive scale.
Yeah.
We just need to look at India's Aadhaar system. It's the world's largest digital ID program, and it has suffered multiple major data breaches. Sensitive personal information and biometric data belonging to literally 1 billion people have been exposed.
1 billion people. That's almost unimaginable. An unparalleled security failure.
It really is. And it's not just about malicious breaches. What happens when the system simply malfunctions? When there's a glitch? Because when everything is centralized, a system failure can mean you effectively cease to exist digitally.
What do you mean cease to exist?
We have reports, for instance, of elderly people in China being denied basic necessities like food and their pensions simply because a fingerprint scanner failed. It malfunctioned, couldn't verify their identity. So in that moment, according to the system, they weren't verified, they didn't qualify.
Yeah.
You become invisible the second the technology fails you.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back and looking at everything we've discussed, the overwhelming theme seems to be this profound imbalance. The system is marketed with promises of convenience, efficiency, security, but the underlying architecture, the centralization, seems inherently tilted towards control, conditional access. It really feels like it changes the fundamental relationship between us, the citizens, and the powerful entities, both state and corporate.
I think that's the core issue, yes. This global and often mandatory push for digital IDs is forcing us towards a really fundamental choice, maybe an irreversible one, about how we want our societies to function. Under the centralized model, the digital ID stops being just a neutral tool for the individual. It's rapidly morphing into a mechanism for potentially controlling or at least intimately monitoring what we do, what we spend, and where we go. And this huge concentration of power, it comes at a potentially existential cost to personal freedom and autonomy.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this all mean for you listening to this as you see these systems rolling out? I think the bottom line might be this. The convenience that's being sold so hard, it seems likely it will only last, quote, as long as you don't get out of line or say something someone in power doesn't like. That's the conditional society we might be building. And understanding the architecture of that conditionality, that seems like something we all need to be thinking about critically right now.